The first flash hit like lightning, splitting the night wide open. Juniper whimpered in my arms, her forehead blazing, lips dry and trembling. I tightened the blanket around her small frame, feeling every panicked breath against my chest. Behind us, tires screeched to a halt. Caspian jumped out, hoodie up, mask half on. "Come on," I said. "She needs a doctor now." But then, the second flash. A swarm of voices. "Caspian, over here. Who's the woman? Is that his kid?" He froze, like a deer, like a coward. Another flash closer this time. He glanced at me, at her. Then he handed Juniper back to me and turned. He ran. I staggered under her weight. The rain had turned icy, soaking through my jeans, sliding into my boots. She cried and my hands shook, but I held her tighter. No security guard came, no limo door opened. Only the cameras stayed watching me break under the storm. That was the moment I stopped being his secret. That was the moment I became hers fully. Where are you listening from tonight? Subscribe if you've ever been left in the rain and didn't fall. Most people knew him as Caspian Roan, golden boy of Hollywood. Charming, untouchable. The kind of man who smiled like the world bent to his will. But I met him before all that. Before the billboards and award shows. Before the security teams and stylists. Back when he was just Cass. A struggling actor with tired shoes and eyes that begged to be seen. I was 23 then, fresh out of art school, scraping together freelance gigs with a borrowed camera and coffee-stained resume. He came into my life like a casting call I never auditioned for. I was hired to shoot behind-the-scenes stills for a low-budget indie film. He was the male lead, unknown, nervous, but magnetic. I didn't mean to notice him, not like that. But during lunch breaks he'd find me, ask about my lens, offer me half of his sandwich. "You see people," he once said after I showed him a shot I'd taken. "Not just how they look, but who they are." I smiled, didn't say what I wanted to, that I saw him, too clearly. A month later we kissed. Another month I moved in. His career rose fast. That film led to another, then a supporting role that made headlines. Suddenly he had a publicist, a stylist, a curated image, and I became the blurry girl beside him, cropped out of red carpet photos. Smudged in the background of his rising star. He asked me not to post about us. "It's just better this way," he said. "They want me available, mysterious. You understand, right?" At first, I did. I told myself it was temporary. That once he got the roles he deserved, we'd step into the light together. But then I got pregnant. He was quiet at first, then scared. Then one night he dropped to his knees, held my stomach and cried. "I want this," he whispered. "I want you. Just not yet. Please give me time." I gave him more than time. I gave him everything. I cut ties with my parents, who were furious I carried a child out of wedlock with a man no one could name. I left my dreams of travel, turned down a scholarship abroad, stayed home, built a nursery in a rented house by the sea, while he filmed 3 cities away. When Juniper was born, he wasn't there. He FaceTimed from set, told me she was beautiful, but he didn't hold her until she was 3 days old. "She can call me Uncle Cass," he said, half joking. Just until things calmed down. They never did, because in his world, things never stay calm. They just stay hidden. Juniper turned 5 on a Tuesday. She asked if her daddy would come to the party. I gave her the same answer I always did. "He's busy, baby, but he loves you so much." She nodded, lips pursed. She didn't cry, not anymore. That night, Caspian came home, unannounced. He brought a dollhouse the size of our kitchen table and a cake with her name spelled wrong. But she was thrilled. "Uncle Cass," she squealed, throwing herself into his arms. He smiled like the hero he thought he was. I just watched, hands still sticky with frosting. After she fell asleep, a sugar crash wrapped in unicorn pajamas, I asked him, "Do you ever plan to tell the world she's yours?" He looked at the floor, then at the wine glass in his hand. "I just need a little more time. There's a new franchise. Big deal. If I go public now," I cut him off. "She's not a press leak. She's a person." "I know," he rubbed his eyes. "God, Lilith, I know." We didn't fight. We never screamed. That was the problem. Everything between us became quieter until it disappeared. 2 days later, Juniper spiked a fever. It started small. By midnight, she was burning up skin, hot limbs shaking. I called Caspian. He was already in town for an event. I told him to meet me at the ER. He pulled up just as I stepped out of the car, Juniper in my arms, blanket around her small frame, her whimpers breaking through the rain. That's when it happened. The flash. Paparazzi had followed his car. Another camera, then another, then voices. "Who's that? Is that his kid? Wait, is he with someone?" Caspian looked at me, at her. He took a step back. "Cass," I said, "help me." He handed her back to me, didn't say a word, didn't look twice. Then he ran, straight to the car, pulled away into the storm. Juniper cried out. I clutched her tighter, felt the heat of her fever through the damp fabric. And as the ER doors opened, I knew something inside me had closed forever. Juniper's fever broke at dawn. I hadn't slept. I sat by her hospital bed wrapped in a borrowed blanket, my clothes still damp from the night before. She stirred, opened her eyes. Her voice was hoarse. Mommy, where's Uncle Cass? I brushed the hair from her forehead. He had to go, baby. He's working. She blinked slowly, then turned away, didn't ask again. That morning, the internet exploded. Not because of Juniper, not because of me, because of him. Caspian Roan spotted at a hospital in the rain. Rumors swirling, paternity questions fired from every angle. On a primetime interview the next night, he leaned back in his suit, crossed his legs, and smiled at the camera. There's no secret marriage, he said smoothly, no girlfriend, and certainly no child. I watched from our worn-down couch. Juniper was asleep in my lap. I muted the TV before he finished, before I threw something. The next day, his mother showed up at our door. Mirabelle Roan, former Hollywood royalty turned image manager, still dressed like the cameras never left. Pearls tight around her throat, eyes colder than the sea behind her. She didn't ask to come in. She stepped inside like she owned the floorboards. You understand, she said, that if this continues, you'll ruin everything. I stood between her and the hallway where Juniper was playing. She got sick, I said flatly. He ran. Mirabelle smiled like I was stupid. He ran, because that's his job, to survive the machine, to be what people pay to see. She's his daughter. She's your problem. The words slapped harder than a hand ever could. She pulled a checkbook from her bag. The pen clicked. No one has to know she exists. You could be anywhere tomorrow. I didn't look at the amount. I tore the check in half. Then again. Get out. She stared at me. For the first time, something like respect flickered across her face. But she left, didn't slam the door, didn't say goodbye. That night I packed. No more hiding, no more waiting, no more excuses. Juniper clutched her fox plushie. Are we leaving Uncle Cass's house? I knelt beside her, kissed her nose. We're going somewhere better, I said. Somewhere we're not a secret. We moved into a small apartment across town. No ocean view, no marble countertops. But it had warm light in the morning, and the windows didn't pretend to be anything they weren't. Juniper called it our fort. We strung fairy lights across the ceiling, lined the bookshelf with secondhand picture books and her fox drawings. She stopped asking about Uncle Cass. She never called him Daddy again. I sold my old camera to cover rent, bought a refurbished one with a cracked screen, posted my first ad online. Portraits by Lilith Arden. Honest, affordable, no filters needed. My first job was a baby photo shoot in a cluttered living room with peeling wallpaper. I made $50 and cried in the car. Not because of the money, because I remembered what it felt like to work, to create, to matter. Then came the wedding photos, the product shots, the headshots for aspiring actors who reminded me too much of him. I worked through lunch, worked after Juniper fell asleep, worked until my hands cramped and my eyes blurred. And slowly clients returned, then referred me to friends, then tagged me in posts. People weren't hiring Caspian Roan's hidden girlfriend. They were hiring me. Juniper came with me on weekends, setting up lights, making clients laugh with her off-key humming and the way she called reflectors silver pancakes. One Sunday, a nervous influencer named Marnie booked me for a shoot. I don't want to look fake, she whispered. I want to look like me. I posed her by a window, let the light fall across her face, captured the strength in her slouch, the hope in her eyes. She posted the photos that night, wrote a caption about feeling seen. The post went viral. I didn't expect what followed. DMs, inquiries, 3 bookings in 2 hours. Marnie tagged me again the next day. She's not just a photographer, she wrote. She's someone who remembers who you are before the world told you to change. I read it over and over, then looked across the room. Juniper was asleep in a pillow fort. Our world quiet and true. I wasn't a headline. I wasn't a secret. And for the first time in years, I wasn't someone's shadow. The email came on a Tuesday morning. Subject line, behind the scenes shoot opportunity, NDA required. I almost deleted it, but something about the sender, a well-known production house, made me pause. The client, a new prestige drama, big budget, tight schedule, lead actor, Caspian Roan. I stared at the screen, felt my fingers curl slowly into fists. I should have said no. I wanted to, but bills don't care about broken hearts, and pride doesn't pay rent. So I said yes, signed the NDA, packed my gear, left Juniper with my friend Mara, who raised one eyebrow but said nothing. The set buzzed with manufactured excitement. Makeup artists darted between trailers. Production assistants whispered into earpieces. No one looked at me twice. Perfect. I kept to the edges, framed shots, captured angles, shot without shaking, until his voice floated over a monitor, deep, familiar. I turned, and there he was, Caspian Roan, dressed in black, chin lifted, face just as handsome but tired. He laughed at something a co-star said. Then his eyes found me. He froze, took a slow step forward, then another. Lilith. I raised my camera, clicked once, don't stop, you're in the light. He swallowed, nervous. Good. We didn't talk again on set. But that night I found him waiting by my car. He stepped into the light, hands tucked into his jacket. I've been looking for you, he said. You knew where I was, I replied. You just didn't want to see me. I made a mistake. Which one, lying, running, or pretending we didn't exist? I was scared, he said quietly. The cameras, the contract, the pressure. I held up a hand. I carried your child through fevers and rent and broken dreams. Don't talk to me about pressure. He looked away, then back. I want to see her, Juniper. I want to make things right. I stared at him, long enough for him to squirm. Can she call you Dad now? Silence, not hesitation, absence. That was all I needed. I unlocked my car, opened the door. Let me know when you find your spine, Cass. Then I drove away, the road behind me empty. Just like his promise. It was everywhere, my inbox, my feed, my neighbors' whispers through thin apartment walls. Caspian had gone public. At the Golden Dove Awards, on live television. I have someone I've kept hidden too long, he said. The woman I love, and the daughter I've never had the courage to claim. Gasps, flashbulbs, applause. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Articles, reels, speculations. By morning, the press camped outside our building. By noon, someone found Juniper's school. I pulled her out early, wrapped her coat tight, held her hand as cameras clicked behind parked cars. That night, Caspian showed up. Not in a sleek car. No entourage, no mask. Just him. On one knee, ring box open under our apartment's flickering porch light. Lilith Arden, he said, voice trembling just enough to sound real. Marry me, let's do it right this time. People gasped, phones lifted. Juniper peeked from the window. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me like a shield. I looked him in the eye. The man who left us in a storm, who let me carry everything alone, and now wanted credit for showing up in daylight. No, I said softly, but I love you, he whispered. You had your chance, I said. And you loved the cameras more. I stepped back. The porch light flickered again. You want to prove something? I nodded toward our door. Be her father, not her headline. Then I walked away. The applause didn't follow me, only silence. The next morning I packed 2 suitcases, one for me, one for Juniper. I left the ring he offered on our windowsill beside a wilting houseplant and the last light of the sunrise. He didn't try to stop us. This wasn't revenge, it was release. We boarded a train headed north, coastal, quiet and slow. Juniper pressed her forehead to the window, the whole ride watching fog rise from pine-covered cliffs. Covered cliffs. Are we running away? She asked. I shook my head. We're walking toward something. We landed in a small town called Wren's Hollow. No press, no red carpets. Just wooden signs, coffee shops that closed at 6, and neighbors who waved from porches. I rented a sun-bleached cottage with a sagging porch and a yard wild with dandelions. Juniper loved it instantly. We built a photo studio in the attic. Hung string lights, painted the walls white. She called it our lighthouse. I started over again. Word spread slowly. Portraits by Lilith Arden. No airbrush, no artifice. Just people, as they were. My calendar filled faster than I expected. Brides, baristas, veterans, farmers, no one famous. But every single one worthy of being seen. Juniper followed me with a second-hand camera slung around her neck. She mimicked my angles, invented her own. One afternoon, she captured a widowed woman smiling beside her late husband's favorite chair. She still smiles, Juniper said. She still remembers. That photo was picked up by a local paper, then an online art blog, then a nonprofit reached out asking if we'd document small-town motherhood for a storytelling project. I said yes, and from that came everything. We spent a year traveling across the country, telling stories with lenses instead of microphones, farms, shelters, kitchen tables with chipped mugs and tired eyes. Juniper asked questions. I captured the quiet. Our bond deepened with each mile. She became more than my daughter. She became my mirror, my anchor, my co-creator. One day, I got an email from National Geographic. They'd seen the project, wanted to commission a photo essay, Not just about motherhood, about rebirth. My hand trembled on the mouse, not from fear, from knowing this was the moment I thought I'd lost. But it had waited patiently for me. Juniper helped me plan the trip, helped pack my gear. I want to go, she said. But I know this is your turn. I hugged her tight. If I go, I want you to promise something. What? Keep taking pictures. Of yourself, of the world, of everything worth remembering. She promised. I flew to Peru, then Mongolia, then Kenya. 3 months of dust, laughter, sweat, and the soft click of shutter after shutter. I sent Juniper postcards. She sent back photos, each one better than the last. When I returned, she met me at the airport holding a handmade sign that said, "You chased your light, now we hang it together." I framed that sign, hung it in our studio right above the door. 6 months later, the photo essay went viral. Then came interviews, exhibitions, an invitation to speak at the Global Women in Arts Conference. I wore a thrifted blazer and trembling hands, told them my story, told them hers, told them ours. They stood, they clapped, I cried. But the moment that mattered most was later when I returned home and found Juniper asleep on the floor of the studio, a camera in her lap, a photograph clutched to her chest. It was me, eyes soft, mouth open mid-laugh, a shot I didn't know she'd taken. She woke up, saw me, and said groggily, "You're the strongest picture I've ever taken." That night I realized I hadn't just escaped the shadow of Caspian Roan. I'd become my own light source, and passed the spark to the one person who never needed me to be famous. Only real. Months passed. Then came a call. I didn't expect. A production company pitching a documentary. About me, about the project, about a mother and daughter who turned silence into light. At first I said no. I didn't want cameras back in our life. Not again, not after everything. But the director, Mia Barnes, was different. A woman, soft-spoken, sharp-eyed. She said something that made me pause. "This isn't about him, it's about you. About what women become when the world stops pretending they're invisible." I asked Juniper. "It's your story too," I told her. She thought for a long time, then nodded. "Let's show them how we live." Filming began in spring. Mia was careful, respectful. She let us tell it our way, no polish, no PR. They followed us to shoots, to the farmer's market, to the back porch where Juniper read books aloud to the dog. The film was quiet, honest, the kind of story that doesn't shout, but echoes. Then midway through production, Caspian showed up. He didn't contact me first, just arrived on set one morning, same jawline, less armor. He spoke to Mia, said he wanted to support the story. I stayed behind the lens that day, watched as he hovered on the edge of frame, uncertain for the first time in his life. Later he found me near the studio steps, said he'd seen the photos, said he followed everything. "You built something," he whispered. "Something true." "I did," I said, "and I didn't need you to do it." He nodded, didn't flinch, didn't beg. Then he asked the one thing that still carried weight. "Can I talk to her?" Juniper had been watching from the top of the stairs. She came down slowly, stopped a few feet from him. "Hi, Uncle Cass." He winced, then smiled. "Hi, Junebug." They sat on the porch for 20 minutes. I didn't eavesdrop, but I saw her hand rest on his knee at one point, and his shoulders shake quietly. That night she curled up beside me and whispered. I told him I forgive him, but I'm not ready to call him Dad. I kissed her forehead. You never have to. The documentary premiered in early fall. It went viral in under 48 hours. Critics called it raw, revolutionary, the opposite of Hollywood. And Caspian, he barely appeared. Just a footnote, exactly where he belonged. After the buzz died down, he wrote us one final letter. No pleads, no spin. Just truth. "I will always carry the shame of running when you both needed me most. I'm proud of what you've built. If I can ever be useful as a name or resource, or just someone standing quietly in your corner, I will." We never replied. But some nights, I see Juniper reading that letter under her covers, and I let her, because closure doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from becoming. And we had become everything we needed, famous not for who we stood beside, but for what we stood through. 2 years later, we stood in a gallery in Lisbon, our photos hanging like windows into other lives. Juniper, now 10, held a camera twice her size and a confidence twice her age. One of her portraits had just won a youth category prize. A quiet shot of a grandmother brushing her granddaughter's hair. She titled it, "What Stays." After the ceremony, we walked along the waterfront, our shadows stretched in the golden hour. She looked up at me and asked, "Do you think people still remember him?" I knew who she meant. I thought for a moment, then said maybe, but they remember us more. She smiled, then took a photo of me mid-laugh, salt wind tangling my hair. We returned home to Wren's Hollow to find 3 new portrait requests waiting, all from women who'd written the same thing. I want to be seen by someone who understands. That was the legacy I wanted. Not red carpets, not wedding rings, not headlines, but something deeper. A life that refused to disappear. A daughter who never had to. Juniper's last bedtime question that night was soft. Will I always be enough? I wrapped my arms around her. You are more than enough. You're the reason I became who I was meant to be. Because in the end, it wasn't about Caspian's betrayal or the awards I'd earned or the stages I stood on. It was about one thing, what rises after the flash fades. Not the famous, not the flawless, but the faithful, the fierce, the ones who stay. If you've ever rebuilt yourself in silence, if you've ever raised a child with nothing but your heart and grit, if you've ever turned a goodbye into a beginning, then this story is yours too. Where are you listening from in the world? Subscribe if you believe that sometimes quiet love leaves the loudest legacy.